There are companies, some companies, not a lot mind you, that can put out a campaign, put out a game on Kickstarter that barely anyone even knows what it's about or what's going on, and people jump all over that thing like hotcakes. And Chip Theory Games is one of those companies. I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and if you're here, it's because, well, you're interested in Burncycle and a video popped up in your feed, or you subscribe, or any of those things. But ultimately, whether you're a subscriber popping in here, I'm glad to have you, and let's talk about Burncycle. Should you back it? Should you not? What's the game like? I have played it, at least I've played one floor out of 3, and should you back it? What's the campaign? What are the pledge levels? All that stuff. Chip Theory Games, with their 7-day left campaign here, they're running 10-day campaigns, which is one of those complicated things that people often get a little frustrated by because they can miss out. It's a short window, but ultimately there's a longer conversation about the nature of how long a Kickstarter campaign should be, which is now going in my list of video ideas. But in any case, this is Burncycle, the newest game from Chip Theory Games, the company that has brought you Hoplomachus, with a teased new Hoplomachus coming eventually, the company that has brought you Too Many Bones, all the expansions they're in, the Trove Chest, Undertow, all that stuff. In fact, we got our little chip right here for Duster right over there. The company that has brought you Cloudspire and the expansions for that, and the company that has brought you Triplock, the one disappointment that I have had from Chip Theory Games. Because Triplock, for those who don't know, is a small, tiny little game with a little puzzle. It is a game that's pretty decent, but all things considered, but it's not up to the love, the adoration that many Chip Theory games bring to the table. And Burncycle is their newest game. Burncycle, for those who don't know, is it's a how to put this? It's a game that's going to bring the Chip Theory feel to the table, but in a very different implementation. This is not going to be a combat game. In fact, combat is often the last resort in this game. Combat is going to make things, well, taking out guards in this game is going to be hard. It's going to be something you're going to have to struggle for, and perhaps you'll be able to get to do it occasionally, but it's certainly going to be the exception and not the norm. In this game, the theme of the game is robots have kind of helped save the world or whatnot, and now humans are kind of rising up and trying to destroy the robots because, well, why not? And you, as the robots, are trying to sneak into the facility, take over the CEO's office, or do some sort of things in order to save the world and the robots they're in. If it sounds like I'm not 100% familiar with the lore, that's because I'm not. It's lore, and I don't do lore so much as I do mechanics and gameplay. That being said, robots are not. What you are doing in this game, you are robots with your, yourself, your allies, as well as a controller bot, that you will be going into this facility, breaking in, trying to proceed floor by floor until you get to the CEO's, third floor, do what you need to do, and ultimately win the game. Each floor is going to present an objective, some sort of situational something or other that you have to achieve. Maybe it's a particular game state of you and other robots being on certain tiles. Maybe you actually have to eliminate a guard. Different challenges that you will have to face on each floor, and the tricky part about this game is you have to navigate the state of the game. You have to try to figure out what kind of access do you have to the rooms, what kind of access do you have to getting in, doing what you need to do, accessing terminals, and figuring out what you need to do to get to that ideal game state. And it's going to be hard because guards operate with line of sight rules. Guards will see you. They will have awareness in front of them, as well as general awareness to a lesser degree on all sides. And you have to maneuver around the board, taking into account the awareness of the guards, hiding when necessary, dodging around corners when necessary, running in front of them and hoping to get away when necessary. All these things will slowly but surely escalate your threat, which is the main way you will lose the game. If your threat ever gets to 26, you will lose. And even if it doesn't get to 26, as you proceed along that track, as your threat does escalate, you will find other things getting in your way, making it harder to actually win. But if you can access those terminals, if you can get into those rooms, if you can get upgrades, equipment, terminals, all these things, slowly but surely level up your character, get more and more action points, use those to turn them into, well, better dice or different other benefits, then you will have a chance at winning, because as you go floor by floor, sure, that threat will escalate, but so will the abilities that you have, so will the modifications that you have, the things you can do to get past whatever game state is being presented. This game is a puzzle, more so than most Chip Theory games. All Chip Theory games, or at least I thought all the ones I've played, I still haven't gotten Cloudspire to the table, unfortunately. All Chip Theory games, to a certain degree, are a puzzle. Seeing a situation, seeing options in front of you, and then trying to figure out how to get around whatever blockade is being presented, and getting towards your objectives. But while games like Too Many Bones disguise that more in a combat dynamic and the abilities on your foes and the abilities of yourself as you upgrade and all that stuff, in Burncycle, it's really going to be more about the board game state. For all those who complain that Too Many Bones doesn't have enough of a board, Too Many Bones is too abstracted, it's all whatever, and that board is a 4x4 grid, it's nothing, it's not really a board. Well, Burncycle might be the better game for you. Burncycle is going to give you that board. It's going to give you significantly more maneuvering and less upgrading and less abstractness. Still going to have player abilities, still going to have different things like that that will make the experience, more dynamic or more whatever, but it's going to do all that in a very different engine while maintaining that Chip Theory Games feel. Now, I mentioned already, I have played one floor. I got to have a playthrough with Shannon from Chip Theory Games. I've played the floor. I'm going to be a little bit narrower with my feedback here because I know the game is going through iterations. They've already been fairly public about this. I saw an interview with, Josh Wilgus, I think, with Josh Wilgus and Board Game Spotlight, James Hudson. They had an interview and they talked about the fact that Chip Theory Games, this is going to fall into the category of a Kickstarter that is very much a product with a solid core, but still going through iterations, still going through development. Whatever you see here is very much subject to change, and I know some of the graphics and artwork, I know some things have already changed. The player boards themselves have shifted. Some of the art on these boards over here, you can ignore that. You want to see the real art, take a look at this update over here where you can see this is what a real room will look like, because this is okay, but it's not up to the standards of a Chip Theory Games game, and that's because this is the standards of a Chip Theory Games game. This art on all those tiles, different rooms with that vibe. I mean, I can't wait to see the actual finalized art of this game because, again, this was okay. I was honestly okay with this until I saw what was actually on the table. And that's going to extend to the mechanics of the game as well, because I can tell you that overall, I think that Burncycle is going to be a solid game. From my play of that singular floor, it very much has a Chip Theory Games feel. It very much brings those options to the table. It does give you a lot of challenges and different things that you will have to do. All this puzzle being presented that you have to solve. And I think it will be a solid game already. But I will say I did have critiques. I did have things that I felt I would have wanted to see differently in terms of the dice rolling, the luck aspect of the dice, things like the way this sideboard integrates with the main board. I had certain small critiques, and I can tell you that when I delivered it, I was told that that's awesome, helpful, and whatnot, because some of those things were already things they were tweaking or adjusting. They are going through playtesting. They are going through iterations and whatnot. They have been very, very clear that this is a game still in development, still being tweaked, and if any of their previous games are anything to go by, I believe that Chip Theory Games will deliver an excellent final game. And again, I already think it's very good. The way I put it to them in my feedback is Chip Theory Games. Burncycle's competitor isn't another game. Burncycle's competitor for me in my collection is Too Many Bones. It's fighting against its bigger brother for a spot on my shelf. And so ultimately, I think that depending on how they finalize it, depending on how those things play out, it'll either be a solid experience with a different feel than the standard Too Many Bones, Cloudspire, or whatnot, or it'll be just as good, if not better, because one of the things they're going for in this game is higher accessibility. I love Too Many Bones. I think I'll like Cloudspire, but those are games that deliver not only a set of rules that you have to learn every time you play it, but also a full rule set in terms of every time you want to play a new faction, every time you want to play a new character in Too Many Bones. Those things are entirely new rule sets. I have played games that are less complex than learning a new character in Too Many Bones, and don't get me wrong, I love Too Many Bones. I'm not complaining at all. Duster or any of those things, they're amazing. But it does come with the downside of accessibility. And I believe Burncycle is aiming to bridge that gap a little more. The rule set, as it were, of the game itself is still a lot. There's still a lot going on here. But past that, once you get past the basic rule set, the overall accessibility of the engine is significantly, more accessible than Too Many Bones or, in theory, Cloudspire. I haven't actually played that one, so I'm going to keep saying in theory on that one. As far as the pledge levels, let's go through the pledge levels over here and then go into should you back it, should you not, all of that stuff. So pledge levels are going to come in with $5. That is access to the pledge manager. This is the minimum amount you will need to get access to the pledge manager. So if you're on the fence, you want to upgrade later, jump in at $5. For $115, you're going to get the Burncycle base game. You're going to be saving $15 off the MSRP, and unlike other companies, and we'll get to this in the should you back it, unlike other companies, the $15 off the MSRP actually matters in a game like in a company like Too Many Bones or Chip Theory Games, geez, that sells the games on the website themselves, and those games do not enter typical distribution. So normally if I see $15 off MSRP, I'm like, please, that's not even a sale, and plus you have to pay for shipping. But in the case of this game, that's not true. That is actually a savings. For $140, you're going to get the Burncycle gameplay bundle. That's going to give you, and I love this part, I love Chip Theory Games. You're a great company. The amount of fans you have, I'm a huge fan, other people are huge fans, all that stuff's good. But I will point out that they're doing that thing over here where for $140 you can get the BioDefend Corporation and the Specialist Bot Pack. So basically for an extra $25 you can get the $30 add-on plus the Specialist Bot Pack. And those are typical things. They're meant to make you feel like you're getting a good deal, and it's not a bad deal. I mean, these are actually prices you'll see after the fact on their own website. But basically, my point is, if you're interested in the BioDefend Corporation, or even if you're interested in just the Specialist Bot Pack, jump straight into that Burncycle gameplay bundle. Let's cover that, though. Let's cover what those two are. The Specialist Bot Pack is going to give you 4 more bots to play in the game. So for $15, you get 4 more characters, effectively, which is a solid deal. And those of you used to paying significantly more for characters in Too Many Bones, that's because, like I said, there's less of a full rule set, less of a full component overhaul to each individual character, which is why you get 4 for a much cheaper price there. Each character does come with their own unique abilities, but significantly less so. For $30, you're going to get the BioDefend Corporation. That's going to give you another CEO, another big bad that you're fighting against, as well as more guards, more imperatives, more modifications. Modifications are effectively your upgrades in the Burncycle, so more of that kind of stuff in the game. As for $75, you're going to get the Bot and Guard Brass Mag figures. This is Chip Theory Games doing miniatures. They kind of started down this path with Cloudspire, and they're taking it to the next level here. I will admit, by the way, that I am skeptical of how these are going to play out. On the one hand, it's Chip Theory Games, and Chip Theory Games does deliver amazing production quality. On the other hand, I am curious how this will actually play out. These magnetized brass minis that go on top of the chips, will that be elegant, gorgeous, amazing, or will that be awkward and clunky? I don't know. I really don't. But I will say, they say over here, see our spotlight doing the Kickstarter. So it sounds like we're going to be able to see more and have an opportunity to see what this is like. Past that, we have for $35 the Deluxe Lore Recruitment Portfolio. This is going to give you 10 booklets containing heist stories, basically lore and art for the game. Not my cup of tea, but, maybe yours. Then for $15, you get the Deluxe Straw Bag, which, I mean, it does look like a deluxe bag, but it's also $15 for a bag, so to each their own on that one. Burncycle playmat for $45. This is coming in a bit more than a normal playmat in terms of just the typical playmat production or whatever, but it's also, again, Chip Theory Games, and their playmats are hands down the best playmats I've seen from any other company, so feel free to add that to your collection. And finally, for $15, extra action dice, because, well, I like how they did this one over here, because sharing during a pandemic is frowned upon, and because extra dice. I like how they threw in the end because extra dice, so it's not a pure COVID play or whatnot. And all that, you're going to get those extras, not the dice, but everything else. You're going to get the playmat, the Deluxe Draw Bag, and the Deluxe Lore Recruitment Portfolio, and the Bot and Guard Brass Mag figures in the $295 Deluxe Everything Bundle over here. And that does represent a decent savings. You can add it all up. I don't remember the exact amount, but you do save from buying those individually. So these are basically the main core options. The individual add-ons you can go through, then you have the Burncycle base game, the Burncycle gameplay bundle, and the Burncycle Deluxe Everything that will give you all that. And obviously there's also the Burncycle Strategist. This is the Chip Theory Games famous thing where they've been doing every Kickstarter for $650, limited to 10 spots only, and you get access to, you overpay now, but you get access to everything Chip Theory Games down the road. It's always a fun pledge, and the fun part is every additional Kickstarter that goes by, you're inherently getting a little bit less value than the pledge before you, than the Kickstarter campaign before you, but you're still going to sell these out in 2 seconds because people, like I said, love this company. As far as the should you back it, should you not, before we get into the stretch goals. So, short version is, if you are interested in this game, I recommend backing it. Chip Theory Games has actually a very different model than many of the other Kickstarters out there, in the sense that they very heavily price fix their own products. Their own games don't really go on sale. They have things like free shipping sales here and there, but they don't really have a significant amount of sales, if anything. Nothing that really comes to mind, and I follow most of their stuff. Rather, they hold their prices firm. They say, we're going to make incredibly high production quality games. We're going to do deluxe stitched neoprene with holes, things that companies never do, weighted chips that feel deluxified. I love these things. They are a lot of fun, and they're going to do, dice. The dice as well have gotten consistently better with each additional printing that they've done. They deliver incredible games at expensive prices, but prices that are at least fixed. You will not be jumping into this Kickstarter and then finding your $140 game available for $79.99 at whatever retail store or wherever. The games are available through Chip Theory Games website, and you always have the best price during the Kickstarter itself. And additionally, during the Kickstarter, you don't have to worry about getting them in between production runs. Chip Theory Games, like I said multiple times and will continue to say, they are a well-loved company, and they continuously are out of stock on many of their product lines. They put out a blog post about this once, where they consistently will always up their production runs based on whatever the last one was. They go even higher, but they consistently sell out, because as a company you have to manage those things. You can't just say, oh great, we sold out, so let's just double it up, because that will be the time where you overextend yourself and you pay too much money and you don't actually sell everything. So it is a delicate balance. They consistently are upping their goal, upping the amount they produce, but they consistently run out and will be between production runs. So if you're interested in Burncycle, I recommend backing it for a variety of reasons. First of all, this is the cheapest it will be. Well, possibly next Kickstarter for the next Burncycle stuff or whatnot, but this will not be available cheaper down the road. Chip Theory Games hold their value on the aftermarket. This is not a game where you can simply say, hey, I'll just wait till the aftermarket and buy it for $40 cheaper. Chip Theory Games consistently hold the value on the aftermarket. This is the opportunity to get it locked in for sure, as opposed to hopefully getting it the next time they have a print run coming through their website. This is the fastest you will get the game. The only reason not to get the game, in my opinion, is, well, if you're either not interested, or if you're nervous. Maybe you're scared. Maybe this won't be the game you think it'll be. Now, having played it, I think it will be. I think this will, like I said, they iterated towards a solid system, a solid core, and now they're still implementing and iterating out of that, trying to figure out exactly where to take it to make it as ideal as possible, as streamlined as possible, and to deliver the best experience possible. Given their track record, I believe that they'll get there. And I believe that even if they don't, even if it's the exact same game that it is today, I still think it's a good game, just not one I would currently add to my collection in its current implementation because, like I said, of too many bones. And so I think that this will be a solid game. I think this will have a huge fan base, giving you a Chip Theory Games experience, a Too Many Bones experience, but in a very different engine, a very different model, a very entirely different thing for people who are looking for a stealth-based, futuristic, break into corporation, access and hack and all that stuff. It's going to give you all of that. So overall, what it ultimately comes down to is I think this is a good back if it's a game you're interested in, and I think it's one that maybe you should pass on if you're just straight up not interested. At the end of the day, good back or not, if nothing is pulling you in here, if you're too skeptical, if you're unsure, then you can pass it on. A few other things worth mentioning before we close up over here. To begin with, stretch goals. Stretch goals are going to be consistently every 25,000. I often tout Blacklist Games as a company that does real stretch goals. Chip Theory Games, they're pretty much locked in. They're like 25,000. Every 25,000, you get another thing. Doesn't matter how high you go. We've anticipated getting up to at least here, but if you go higher than that, you go higher than that. We're going to throw more stuff in. Every 25,000, plain and simple, no changing of that iteration. So plain and simple, stretch goals will continuously come, continuously grow as the campaign continues to grow. Past that, shipping. Shipping is going to be $10 in the US, $20 in Europe and United Kingdom, and onwards and upwards on this chart. And if you're international, take into account that VAT will be charged in most countries. So keep that in mind. It's becoming the norm nowadays. It's frustrating. It's annoying. It sucks. Honestly, I think the best post I've ever seen about it is one from Peterson Games that put out a whole thing about how VAT is handled. And ultimately, when you don't see VAT, it either means someone's breaking the rules or that they're distributing the price somewhere else. It is unfortunate. It is frustrating. I get it. But ultimately, someone has to pay that bill because, well, I mean, that's just legally someone has to pay that bill. That is everything Burncycle. I think everything Burncycle. I hope I didn't forget anything. But if I did, well, there's always next time. Until next time, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video. And until next time, have a good one.